Welcome back to Mr. DuPage's classroom. This lesson is for my Algebra 2 class. It is 3.3, dividing polynomials with using synthetic division. We need to divide the following polynomials by using synthetic division. Synthetic division is just a different way of doing division than long division or anything along those lines. It works really, really well with polynomials. It is a process. You must memorize the process that you're going to use. The first step, the first thing we want to talk about is this x minus 10. It says we're going to divide our polynomial by x minus 10. Well, I can't really divide by an x minus 10, but what I can do is find out what that would equal. So I could say x minus 10 is equal to 0. If I add 10, then x would equal 10. So really, when it says I'm dividing by x minus 10, I'm really dividing by just 10. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 10 and put it in a box by itself. The next thing I need to look at is I need to make sure that my powers are all there. So in this case I have x squared. So the second power is my highest power. So I have the second power, I have the first power, which is this one, and I have the 0 power because there is no variable. So from x squared down to 0, they are all there. What I'm going to do at this point, that's just to double check that I can actually work through this at this point. What I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to take all the coefficients. There's always a 1 in front of a variable if there's nothing in front of the variable. So I'm going to write down 1, 5, and negative 3. Notice I use the sign in front of each one of these. Okay? So far this has just been a process. There is no thinking involved. All this is it's just a process that we must use. Okay? I'm going to have an addition sign and a bar down here. Okay? That is, again, just part of the process. If you can write this down every single time right away, you're going to do fine. All right? Now, to start, I'm going to bring down this 1 and put it below the line. What I do from here is I take 1 times 10. 1 times 10 is 10, right? So it's 1 times the 10. I'm going to put the 10 under the 5. So I went from this point up to here after I multiplied the 1 and the 10, right? That is the process. You must memorize this process. Okay? 1 times 10, I put the 10 under the 5. Now I have 5 plus 10, which would get me 15. I'm going to take the 15 and multiply it by the 10. So 15 times 10 is 150. So now I have negative 3 plus 150, which is positive 147. Now, at this point, I have done all the synthetic division. I am done. I'm going to box this 147 because this is our remainder. If you remember from 5th grade division, whenever you did division in grade school, you had a remainder from time to time. Well, that is our remainder. Okay? So what I can do from here is I can rewrite a polynomial. I'm not going to use x squared. Because I divided, if you think about division, you always make something smaller. So my polynomial is actually going to be 1 degree smaller than it was originally. So since it was x squared originally, I'm going to start with x to the first power. I'm going to use this 1 as my coefficient in front of the x. I'm going to use this 15 as the coefficient in front of x to the 0 at this point, because I'm going to go down 1 power each time. Now the 147, I'd have plus 147 over, we divided by x minus 10, so it's over x minus 10. This is just a process. If you follow the process, it is not overly difficult. If you do not understand the process, do not force yourself to memorize the process. This will get very, very difficult. So again, the first step I used, I'm going to take this x plus 2, set it equal to 0. Subtract 2, so x equals negative 2. I'm dividing by negative 2. I need to check that all of my degrees are there. I have the third, the second, the first, and the 0. So all of my degrees are there. Remember, I want the coefficients. So the coefficient from x to the third is 1. From x to the second is -3. From just x to the first, it would be -7 and 6. So this 1 came from there. The -3 came from there. The -7 came from there. And the 6 came from there. Right? Okay. Let me get rid of some of those little lines there. Now, the next step was to make an addition sign and a bar underneath. What was the first step of the actual process? It is to drop this first number. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 1 times -2, which is -2. I'm going to put the -2 in here. Put the -2 in there. So now I have -3 plus -2, which would get me -5. I'm going to take the -5 times -2. The -2 comes from here, what I'm dividing by. That would get me +10. The 10 will go under the -7. -7 plus 10 would be +3. So I have +3 times -2, which is -6. That will go under the +6. So 6 plus -6 would be 0. That is my remainder. The last number there is always my remainder. So in this case, I do not have a remainder, but to stay with the same process we've been using, I'm still going to write it in there. Okay? Remember, I started with x to the third. So in my new polynomial I'm writing, I'm actually going to start with x 1 degree less than that, so x squared. Then I have -5, 1 degree less than x squared is just x. +3, 1 degree less than x to the first is x to the 0, which we do not have to put in there. Then I have plus 0 over x plus 2. Well, 0 divided by anything is just going to be 0, and I don't really need this +1 in there. So to rewrite this polynomial, it would be x squared minus 5x plus 3, and I am done. I understand that this can get confusing to start with, but the more practice you actually force yourself to do, the better off you're going to be. Okay? So let's look at number 3. Again, x minus 1 comes first. Add 1, so x equals +1. Put +1 in its little box. Now I need to check my degrees. I have the 4th degree, the 3rd degree, the 2nd degree. What is missing here? What is missing here is the 1st degree. I don't have just an x there. So, and like I said before, I need everything from the largest degree down to the 0 degree. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite this polynomial. 5x to the third, 4x squared, and I'm going to add in the 1st degree, so 0x minus 9. Because it does not exist, the coefficient for that would be 0. Okay? So now that they're all there, I can do 10, 5, 4, 0, and -9. We're going to add and put a bar. I'm going to drop my 10. So now I have 10 times 1, which is 10. Put that under the 5. 5 plus 10 is 15. 15 times 1 is 15. Put that under the 4. 4 plus 15 is 19. 19 times 1 is 19. Put that under the 0. 0 plus 19 is 19. 19 times 1 is 19. -9 plus 19 is +10. Remember that last one is always our remainder. Okay, so I will have a remainder here. Now, to rewrite my polynomial, I started with 10x to the 4th. I need to drop it 1 degree. So I'm going to use this as my leading coefficient. So 10 is my leading coefficient. If I drop it 1 degree, it would be x to the 3rd. Plus 15, drop it 1 degree, x squared. Plus 19, plus 19, drop it 1 degree, so it would be x plus 19. Drop it 1 degree, so it would be x to the 0. And we cannot have an x to the 0 power, so we do not need to write any x's there. Then I need to add my remainder. It's 10 over what it told us we're dividing by, which is x minus 1. And I'm done. Okay? So on to number 4. I have x plus 4 first. If I take the x plus 4 equals 0, subtract 4, x equals negative 4. Put negative 4 in a box by itself. I'm going to check my degrees. I have the third, I have the second, I have the first. What is missing here is my 0 degree. I need every degree from the largest degree I have down to 0. So I need to rewrite this. 3x cubed plus 13x squared plus 2x plus 0. I'm going to put my coefficients in. So 3, 13, 2, and 0. My addition bar, my addition and my bar, I'm sorry. Drop the first number. Okay? Now I'm going to take the 3 times negative 4, which would be negative 12. 13 plus negative 12 is positive 1. 1 times negative 4 is negative 4. 2 plus negative 4 is negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8. 0 plus positive 8 would be positive 8. That is my remainder. So again, to rewrite our polynomial, I started out with x to the third. So I need to drop that 1 degree. So it's going to be 3x squared plus 1x. This is a negative 2, so it would be a negative 2. If I dropped it 1 degree from x, that would be x to the 0 power. Do not need it. That's a positive 8, so it would be plus 8 over what it told us we're dividing by, which is x plus 4. I do not need that 1 right there in there, but if you want to go ahead and write it, that is fine. All right, on to number 5. So again, I'm going to take x plus 6 first, set it equal to 0, subtract the 6, x would equal negative 6. I'm going to put the negative 6 in a box by itself. Now I need to check my degrees. I have the third degree, the second degree. I do not have a first degree, so I need to write it in there. Since there isn't one, it would just be 0 as the coefficient. Okay. Now I can use each coefficient. 3, 14, 0, and negative 24. Remember that I'm using the sign for each one of the coefficients. I add my bar and my plus sign. The first step from here is to drop the 3. Now I can take 3 times negative 6, which is negative 18. 14 plus negative 18 is negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 6 is positive 24. Positive 24, or 0 plus positive 24 is positive 24. 24 times negative 6 would get me negative 144. So negative 24 minus 144 would get me negative 168. Okay, and that is my remainder. So now, 1 less than my initial degree, which was 3. So it's going to be 3x squared minus 4x plus 24 minus 168 over what it told me originally I was dividing by, which is x plus 6. And I am done. Okay? On to number 6. I have x minus 1. So I'm going to set that equal to 0. Add 1. X would equal positive 1. Put that in a box by itself. I have the fourth degree, the third degree. I'm missing the second degree. So I need to write it in there. Notice I put 0 in front of the second degree. So now I can use 4, negative 3, 0, negative 9, and 9. My plus sign and my bar, drop the 4. 4 times 1 is 4. Negative 3 plus 4 is positive 1. 1 times 1 is positive 1. 0 plus 1 is positive 1. 1 times 1 is again positive 1. Now I have negative 9 plus 1, which would be negative 8. Negative 8 times 1 is negative 8. So 9 plus negative 8 would be positive 1. That will be my remainder. I started out with the fourth power, so now I'm going to move to the third power. So it would be 4x to the third. These are all positive until I get to the 8. So it would be plus 1x squared plus 1x minus 8. Remember, all of these are coming from underneath my bar here. Okay? Plus 1 over my x minus 1 from the original problem. And I am done. You do not need these ones in here. If you just want to write x squared and x, that is perfectly fine. The most important thing about this lesson, guys, is you have to understand the process. You must understand the process. The process is not overly difficult. I'm not asking you to multiply 3-digit numbers and then divide them by a 2-digit number and find the derivative of something. These are pretty simple, straightforward calculations you can do on your calculator fairly quickly. You just need to understand the process. Remember, if you have any questions, bring them to me tomorrow. I will answer them for you. And thank you for watching the video. Have a great day.